Hello, my name is Alan with Saved by the Geeks, and today I'm going to show you how to create a domain controller using Windows Server 2008 R2. I am using VMware Player Virtual Machine to show you this, and this is a evaluation copy of Server 2008 R2. So I am also using just the standard full installation of the server. The first thing, this is assuming that you already have a server or you already have a VM with this in it. The first thing to do, like any server when you're trying to manage something, is go into the server manager. In the bottom left hand, you'll see the tower and the toolbox. That's the server manager. And on the left hand side, you're going to see roles and features. Those are the two that we are going to work with today. Um, First thing we want to do is create a new role. We want to give this server a purpose, and the purpose is going to be acting as a domain controller and being able to manage all the computers and users on your network. First thing to do is right-click roles and add roles, or on the right-hand side when you have it highlighted, you'll see another button that says add roles. Let's go ahead and do that. You're going to get a wizard here for a before you begin wizard, and I usually skip this page by default, so I don't like to see that stuff because there's no need to really read it. I mean, if it's your first time, go ahead, but there's really no need. On here, you're going to see all the available roles that I can assign this server, and the one we're going to be focusing on today is Active Directory Domain Services. So you want to put a check mark next to that. You may get a box that says you need to install .NET 3.5.1. Just go ahead and click install selected, and I've already got it installed on this server, so if you do get that, just make sure you click that. And once you have that checked, you can just click next. And this is just an overview of what you're going to be installing and everything that maybe things to take into consideration. After we do this, this is one of the big ones. We do have to run what's called DCpromo.exe. That's changed in 2012, but I'll explain that when we get to that video of how to do that. But I'll also explain when we get to that part and how to run that. So go ahead and click next, and it's going to give you an overview of what you're installing. Like I said, if you have .NET, it'll say .NET here is going to be installed as well. And just go ahead and click install. I installed .NET before, that way we weren't waiting here for several minutes for the video or for the actual .NET to get installed. So this should only take a quick second. And there we are. You'll see that the installation was successful, and once again, it will tell you to run that DCpromo. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to run DCpromo. So go ahead and close out of this. You'll see that that's all set, and you'll see that everything on the roles page has changed. You now have your Active Directory Domain Services control panel with all those services that are associated with it down here that supports it. So Active Directory Domain Services, you'll see, is off, and that's because we haven't run DCpromo. So that's what we want to do. So we can go ahead and exit out of the server manager for now, and we're gonna pop open a good old command prompt window and just type DCpromo. That's DCpromo.exe, and click enter. And it's going to pull up a wizard like this. Now, with this wizard, there is an advanced mode install, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use the basic installer. You can change everything that's in the advanced installer separate from this, so I'm not too worried about that. So just go ahead and click next. This is going to give you kind of some information about domain controllers and the difference between R2 and 2000, and if you're adding it to an existing domain, you might have issues or different compatibility things. So since this is going to be a first-time domain controller and it's going to be our primary, this is fresh, so we don't need to worry about any of that. So just click next. Now on here, there's going to be two options. There's going to be an existing forest. This is, like I said, if you're going to add it to um, a dome or a network that has domain controller already. Um, we're actually going to create a new domain in a new forest. Okay, so we're going to just click next. And this is going to be our fully qualified domain name. So this is going to be what we use to basically add. This is going to be the resolve name when you go to add a computer to the domain. So for this purposes, I've already got a Save by the Geeks server running here. So I'm going to just use Save by the Geeks test.com. And we're going to click next. It's going to go out and make sure that there's not another domain name or a domain controller that uses that fully qualified domain name, in which our case it shouldn't find anything. It's going to verify the NetBIOS name. Once it gets done here, you should see the functional level. Now, this basically is assuming, if you've got other domains that you're going to add. This is like if you have a 2003 server in your domain or network, you're going to want to select that. However, the highest level that we have is server 2008. You cannot go down. So meaning once I have this domain controller as set as 2008 R2, you cannot go have a 2003 domain controller server that talks to this. So you just want to be mindful of that. So now on this, if I set this functional level to 2008 and I implement a 2012, that's fine because it's 2008 or higher. So just keep that in mind. I'm just, for testing purposes, I'm going to leave it at the current one that we're installing since this is the first one. So just click next. It's going to check the DNS configuration here for this domain services, or for this server. Once this gets done, it's a fairly quick process. I am running this in a virtual, so that's probably why it's taking a little longer than what it probably would, but that's okay. Some things to kind of note, I mean, with these, when you're implementing domain controllers, it is a good idea to have two or more, depending on how many users or how many hosts are going to be connecting in. You want to make sure that it's balanced well, or you're going to have users complain of slow login times or stuff like that. So it's just very important. Domain controller also gives you the ability to um, put policies in place that when a computer connects, this has to be true about that PC. So it changes those those settings on that individual PC. So, I mean, implementing a domain controller isn't something that is an easy task, really. I mean, it's easy to set it up, but when you actually get into configuring it, it can be quite the job, to say the least. This should be just about done. I like to do videos in real time. I don't like to pause them and stop them, because that way if you're doing this, you have a little bit of time, to do it while I'm doing it. So that's how I always learned, is watching videos or reading something and doing it at the same time. So I just don't like to pause and pick up where when it gets done. So we're just gonna wait it out here. Okay, and it's all set. So additional options for this domain controller. Once it gets done, I always run the DNS server. You can run this separately, but it seems to work best if it's kind of in one, just because everything is connecting to this specific server to log in and everything. You don't want to run too many roles on a server, so I would leave it at DNS as well as the DC. So we're just going to click next on this. When you're adding a second controller, this read-only domain controller, the RODC, will be able to be checked. And what that does basically is that second controller, or the one that you have that checked on, you can only view. You can't make any changes whatsoever. So that's kind of nice if you're implementing this in somewhere that they need to be able to look at it, but they don't need to be able to change anything specifically to the domain controller. So, but anyway, we can explain that in a later video when we go over secondary domain controllers. So make sure DNS is checked and click next. This is I'm going to be using a static IP address. I probably should have set this up, but it will give you a warning that you're going to want to use a static. We do not want to use DHCP due to the fact that, you don't want to change whenever you add this. Whenever you add computers to the domain, it needs to be able to view this consistently, and doing that DHCP wise is not good. So I'm going to assign a static here really quick. So we're going to go into Control Panel, Network and Internet Settings, Network and Sharing, Adapter Settings, right click Properties, IPv4, use the following. So we're going to use, oops. I'm just going to use 200 because I know that's not taken. It'll fill the subnet in automatically. The default gateway, if you don't know, you can find that in CMD, and you type ipconfig/all. You're going to get the right here where it says default gateway. Oh, right here. 35.2. Well, because I'm in a virtual, so we'll do 35.2 as the default then. Okay, and the DNS for this is going to be the local machine. So I'm going to put the loopback address of 127.0.0.1 and just click OK. And sorry about that. 192.168.30. $35 to $100. Okay. Sorry about that. So I set it statically, and now it shouldn't warn me for that. So and we're going to continue for that. On this next screen, you're going to see where everything is stored. When Active Directory is created, it's stored in a file in a database, and it's actually an NTDS database, .dti file that stores all of your preferences and settings. So we want that. I'm just going to leave all that default because that's usually what people do. And this is going to be the administrator password. Like it's basically the main password, so that if you need to restore it, you can. So I'm just going to put in a password here. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of a double check or a second security method when you're actually getting into it. So you'll see that savedbythegeekstest.com is our domain. So just keep clicking next. It's going to wait for DNS to finish the install. This is just like if you add a role to the server, so it shouldn't take too much longer. It's going to add that DNS, and you'll see in the server manager where we can access that DNS information. So we'll give this a second here. And it's also installing the group policy, console, the Active Directory, users and computers. I mean, it's installing quite a bit right now, and with everything associated with that. And we're going to need to do a reboot here in just a minute. Okay, you'll see that it's done. We're going to click finish, and it'll probably prompt us to do a restart. So I'm just going to go ahead and restart now so I can show you when it comes back up. It should be fairly quick due to the fact that we're using a virtual. Okay. Here it comes now. It's going to apply some of the new settings that we just did, and then it's going to allow us to log in. Now you got to remember we're on a domain now, so when we create a domain user, and that'll be in another video, you'll see you'll be able to log into this server with that domain user. It does take the administrator account of the computer and adds it to the domain, so we're going to have a way in right off the bat. And there we go. This is just, I don't have an auto login. It's going to be Saved by the Geeks Test Administrator. And the password that I had before. And that was a local account before, but like I said, it's been converted to a domain account. So you'll see it'll come up here. If you open your server manager now, when you look under roles and features, there's going to be a couple things that have changed, and I'll go over those very quickly here due to the fact that we're running out of time. So under roles, you'll see that it'll collect the data, and same with features when you first boot it up. It takes a minute. Here it comes. Active Directory services and DNS server. And if you actually expand this roles, you'll see the two different services under here, which you can select to modify the different settings and view the different services that are under each one of those. So you'll see it'll pull those up. Under features, you actually have your group policy manager, which we'll go over in a later time. But for now, just know that that's there. And you'll see something else that's different under administrative tools. You'll see users and computers. This is going to be where we create our organizational units to be able to organize the computers and users that are in on our network and joined to our domain. So that's just a little bit about the domain controller. We'll get into a little bit more details in the next video. I appreciate you watching, and if you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Make sure to subscribe if you like my videos, or if you would like any other informational videos created, please let me know. Thanks.